The Collective Whisper Podcast with Simon K. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Collective Whisper Podcast. I am your host, Simon K. It's a pleasure to have you guys back on board. If you're enjoying the podcast, and we hope that you come along for all the great guests we have to come for the rest of the season. And tonight we have an extra special guest all the way from the TV reality world of Gold Rush. So we'll get to that person in a moment. But before we do, just a quick reminder, please subscribe to the show. Please share. Please tell your friends. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Okay, on to this week's guest. So as some of you may know, and some of you may not, I'm a huge Gold Rush fan. I've been watching the show for years now. And a couple of years ago, in the first season, we had Todd Hoffman from the show. He told us all about his adventures in gold mining, trials and tribulations of a gold miner. And I'm delighted to have an extra special guest from the current show of Gold Rush, and someone who's been on the show for a few seasons. And I'm talking about none other than Ruby Mahoney. Ruby Mahoney is an accomplished excavator driver known for her remarkable contributions on the TV show Gold Rush. Join us as we dive into Ruby's fascinating journey in the gold mining industry, her experiences working with Tony Beets' crew in Alaska, and her unwavering dedication to her craft. Ruby shares her insight on the thrilling world of gold mining and the challenges she overcomes on a daily basis. Hello, Ruby Mahoney. Welcome to the Collective Whisper Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm always telling people, I'm a big Gold Rush fan and I've been watching it for years. I've watched all the seasons over the last few years, and my wife actually is a big Gold Rush fan. We've watched like all of the episodes with Tony and with Parker and Monica and yourself and everybody. And I've watched all the Gold Rush Whitewater, and every Gold Rush episode comes out, I kind of watch it in some way or another. So I had Todd Hoffman on the show in the first season, and that was a pleasure to have Todd on the show. And it's great to have you on because you're a regular on our screens now. You appear quite a lot, don't you?
Yeah. No, this year is my 7th season with Gold Rush and with Tony, and I've been getting more and more popular, I guess, which is nice. Sometimes it's a balance to balance the two, but it's been great.
Yeah, and I think it's good because, Monica obviously was a big presence there with Tony, and Monica is a real powerhouse. She's a very strong woman, and she's not afraid to say her piece. And in amongst that world of the boys and the men, you have to be strong, I imagine. So I think it was nice then when you came along as well, and you've kind of crept into our vision a lot, and we see, Monica's friend, and now you've become a regular, and it's great to see you leaving your mark and pushing the boys around a bit too,
Well, thank you. Thank you. I try. Yeah, Monica is definitely, such an incredible woman. I'm very, very lucky to have her as my best friend, and lucky to have entered this industry with her, kind of guiding me and teaching me and being there. She's a great inspiration. She's a great inspiration to me and I think all of the other women in this industry, because it is a little bit difficult being a woman in a man's industry, and you definitely have to throw around a little bit and be quick, and we have a point to prove a little bit more, I think. So it's great to have her around. I love being able to work with her.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think of the female presence on the show, whether it be Minnie in The Office, even with Parker's crew, Tatiana and Tyler Mahoney as well from Australia. I mean, there's quite a lot of females on the show, and quite a lot of women, I should say. And they really do make their mark, and they're very good operators, and they work really hard, don't they?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's great. There is, I think out at our camp right now, I think there's 4 girls really like that are really, really there amongst like 20 guys. But it's, 4 of them are all big hitters. They're all, excavator operators. They're all people in charge. They're all people that have been there for years on end, who know a thing or two about, how Tony likes to run it. And I'm sure it's the same for Parker. I know Tatiana's been there for a long time. I know Tyler's been gold mining, not necessarily in the Yukon, but in Australia her whole life. So it's awesome. And I think women operators we're a little bit more attentive to detail. We're a little bit gentler. We're a little bit cleaner. And again, like being a woman in the man industry, I think we strive for perfection a little bit more because we do want to prove ourselves. So I'm very proud of those girls.
And I think, when the show started, Tony was seen as this kind of hard man, hard edged, and, even the other miners kind of, you could see they were intimidated by him. He doesn't take any prisoners. So I can imagine for anybody going to work for him, there's no bullshit, and he says it as it is. And if you can't do the job, get out of the kitchen, if you can't stand the heat. But I noticed though, with the women on the show, he has a different kind of approach, doesn't he? Because he doesn't deal with them the same way he deals with the guys. But I mean, he's a little gentler, but he still gets his message across. But it's a different style.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have a very different relationship with Tony than a lot of people do. Anyways, like I've known Tony since I was a little girl. I used to play on that mine with Monica when I was a kid, so I've known Tony my whole life. Not to say that I don't get in shit with Tony still sometimes, but everybody does. No, I think, Tony still has high expectations. When Tony's very firm when he says he doesn't give a fuck what's between your legs. If you can do the job, you can do the job. But of course he's a little bit more, I would say, I don't know, honestly. Sometimes we can be in the firing line just as well as boys can. And sometimes we do have a little bit more expectation put on us, especially with the equipment, because he always says that he really does actually prefer women operators because we are more gentle with equipment and we are pretty attentive to detail. So in some ways we do have a little bit more pressure on us, and in other senses we don't. But I think the women that have been in this industry and have been with Tony, like all of us have been with him for a long time. So of course you get that relationship with him, and we're all adorable. So of course he's gonna like us more.
Yeah. I mean, you can see that in certain crews, they are kind of like a family. But like in any family, if it's not running well, the family can have a lot of drama. But you can see there, Tony has kind of a well-oiled machine, excuse the pun, but he seems to have like good operators there now. There's good kind of a relationship and what's the word? Like there's a good feeling and a good atmosphere between the crew, and everyone kind of knows what they have to do. They know, there's moments of pressure. So I think over the seasons, what I've noticed is it's developed into a really good crew, and now it runs really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, gold mining is organized chaos, really. Like it's, there's parts of gold mining that are very boring, honestly. Like, when everything's running smoothly, it is quite boring. You're just kind of moving dirt around. But it's constantly changing. We're constantly going after different cuts. Is the master of changing his mind 3 million times. He's got a million projects on the go all of the time. So, this year and over the past few years, we've had people that have been there before come back. And I think that's really helpful because it doesn't matter which mine you are on. Every mine boss is different. They want things done a different way. They operate things a different way. And if there's enough veterans that come back over the years, he can focus on different things where the rest of us can kind of already know what he expects and already knows what he wants. You're always going to have new people come in. But again, if you have enough people that have been there previously, it's kind of nice to have those people around to really show, what he wants, because sometimes he can be really bad about instructions. And other times you just can't understand him. So he's like, bring that.
He has his own unique sayings, doesn't he?
He does. And he's like, bring that loader to the bridge. And you're like, okay, what bridge? We have like 5 of them. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
But in his mind, he's already told you. Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
veterans and, it is a family. You're stuck with each other for 7 months out of the year. You work long days, 12-hour days, you're usually in the middle of the bush. You're kind of stuck with each other, so morale is important, and it's you always try to really, I don't know, make the best of it you can, because it definitely makes the workday easier if you get along, and you can rely on one another.
And of course, I just thought I forgot one important woman as well, is Kevin's fiance, or his wife, I think, is it? I
Girlfriend. Her name is Faith.
see her at the weigh-ins and stuff, but you don't see her much through the show. Sometimes in the office, you get to know people's names as they appear
Yeah.
more in the show, and but then there's others that only pop in and out sometimes. Yeah, that's really good. Let's go back a little bit, because the thing is, for people like yourself who are just doing like an honest day work, but an honest day's work rather, but you're on television and then you're getting all this attention and people want to know things about you. And I'm sure you've seen things written about you and you're like, that's not true or whatever. So in this kind of show, what I like to do is go back a little bit and find out about the Ruby's childhood, and you mentioned they're growing up with Monica and everything. So you are you grew up in Dawson City, no?
Yes, partly. Yeah, I grew up in Dawson. I'm from Dawson. My mom was a super hippie, so I kind of grew up all over the place. I lived in Mexico for a long time. I lived in BC for a little while. My parents are separated, so I lived with my dad in Alberta for a while. So yeah, I've kind of gotten to grow up all over the place, which made for a very interesting childhood. But um, yeah, I am from Dawson, though.
Part of Mexico did you live in?
I grew up in a little town called Barra de Navidad, which is on the west coast, about 6 hours south of Puerto Vallarta. So that's yeah.
And hablas un
Mm-hmm.
poquito de español, no? You speak Spanish?
Yeah, poquito. Hablas español. We stopped going when I was in grade 6 because my brother was 10 years older than me. Yeah, so we stopped going when I was in grade 6 because my brother again was 10 years older than me, and trying to get a teenager to do schoolwork, because my mom of course taught us correspondence. uh yeah, trying to trying to get a teenager to sit down to do schoolwork when there's a beach right there was impossible. So when I kind of got to that age, mom was like, I'm not going through that again.
Of course, of course. And like when we talk about Mexico as well, I know you always hear in the shows toward the end of the season, Tony and Minnie kind of head there on holidays, don't they, a lot?
Yeah, they own a condo there. So they actually own a condo like 30 minutes from the town that I always go to now, which is different from the town so I see them quite a bit throughout the winter as well, if because I just have to hop on a bus and then I can go for
You're like,
dinner.
oh my, yeah, you're like, look who's here.
Yeah, haha, I'm back.
Yes. So did you, as you were growing up and a teenager, what kind of teenager were you? Like, were you rebellious? Were you very nice girl? How were you?
I was a shithead. No, I was definitely
Okay.
I was definitely a rebellious teenager. So yeah, me and Monica were really good friends when we were young kids, and I would say, yeah, I don't know, anywhere between 8 and 13, I would say we hung out a lot. And then we became teenagers, and we were still really good friends, but Monica worked all the time. Monica was, she was out in the mine all of the time. And when I turned into a teenager, I was, chasing boys and causing trouble. So
Were you both tomboys, like because of Monica working in that industry? Were you kind of influenced by her as well? And I suppose it's hard to be a very girly girl when you're around that kind of thing all the time, isn't it?
I think it's hard to be a girly girl in the town of Dawson City. it's, it's
Okay.
mud roads, and we don't have stores or malls or anything like that here. So I think every girl that grows up here is a tomboy. Yeah, you play in mud and sit around campfires drinking beer. That's kind of it's really hard to walk in high heels on gravel roads. So we um we all kind of grew up as tomboys.
Even in the show, when you look at Carla, who was working with Parker and went on Parker's trails. I mean, she was like the real tomboy and survival expert and everything. So you kind of can see in that environment, in like say whether it be Alaska or the Yukon or Dawson City, you're kind of thrown into a lot of scenarios where you need to be tough and you need to live off the land. I don't mean literally, but you need to rough it, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All of us usually know how to wield a chainsaw and start a fire, and that's just basic life. I have to. My house will freeze if I don't do that. But yeah, that's just the basic life. So it was kind of funny. Yeah. So me and Monica kind of had a different kind of we're chasing different things as teenagers. Monica was working a lot. I was not working. And so we kind of drifted apart just because she was working all the time, and yeah, and I was chasing boys and causing trouble. So it was really when I started working for her back in 2017 that our friendship came back together, and now she's my bestie. So yeah, that's honestly one of the best things.
And for you, when you were a teenager, did you kind of say, well, I'm not going to end up working in the mines, or I'm not going to be there, I'm going to do different stuff? Like, because I'm sure people would tell you, oh, you'll probably end up working with Monica, and you'd say, no, I'm going to do my own thing. Did you have ambitions to be other things, or what was in your head?
Yeah, absolutely. No, people didn't necessarily like say that I was gonna go gold mining, but it's usually something a lot of teenagers here fall back on because you can make really good money. To say like if you want to go to college or something like this, it's great. You mine in the summertime when you're usually after school. You can make really good money. So a lot of teenagers definitely do go and work out in the mines here for sure. Because yeah, you can make really good bank really young.
It's like the McDonald's of the Yukon, isn't it? It's
Yeah. So if you're making way more money.
yeah, in the city, people say, well, you can get a job in McDonald's or in Burger King or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's like that with 10 times the money.
Yeah, exactly. You can go run a rock truck for Tony Beets. Yeah, no. When I was 16, all I wanted to do was go and live in Tofino, which is a surf town in BC, and I wanted to live in a tree fort and I wanted to surf. That was that's all I wanted to do. No, I bartended for a really long time. I just bartended and was a server, and I had no thought of going into gold mining.
I suppose it's kind of inevitable for some people because, when you're maybe 12, 13, you don't realize the value of money as much. You want it, but you don't realize the value of it. But then, it's like when people are younger and they say, I'm never going to get married. And then when they're 16 or 17, they fall in love and they're like, I want to get
Yeah,
married, mom. So I think
yeah,
in the Yukon, probably what happens is teenagers kind of suddenly realize, oh, wait, if I go gold mining for one season, I can buy a truck. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. That's the whole reason why I'm still gold mining is so that I can just gallivant around the world for 6 months out of the year.
That's a really good reason for sure. And did you
Yeah.
have, like, because you and Monica were besties, as you say, and really good friends, were there other girls, or did you have a crew who kind of went working with you as well in the summers there, or was it just the two of you?
Monica has had quite a few of her friends work for her. I think I'm the only one that's kind of really stuck around. I mean, her and Lisa, like Lisa has been working for Tony for over 10 years. You don't really see Lisa much on the show. She doesn't really like to be filmed, but she's been there for like over 10 years, longer than I have, way longer than I have. One of my really good friends and Monica's really good friends, Megan, she actually used to work for Parker. You might have seen her on a clip or two. She used to work for Parker. She came to, and you would have seen her. She on the last couple seasons working for Tony. She feeds the plant. Um, she's one of my good friends. She was my roommate for years. I got her to come and work out there again. So there's a few girls, definitely. There's definitely a few of us girls that have known each other for all of our lives.
Yeah, and it's that thing, that kind of situation when you have a friend and you say, hey, listen, come work with me in this job, it'll be great for you and everything. But then maybe they come along and either they don't work out or Tony, the boss, doesn't feel they're up to it. So I'm sure you've seen those
Yeah.
situations where you've had to say to a friend, well, look, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, honestly, I have. I have had to do that, and I've seen it happen a lot. Michael has had to go through that a couple of times, and now he's like, "I'm not bringing anybody else here," because it's hard. You feel responsible for them. Like, I can promise my work ethic, I can promise how I will work, but I can't promise how somebody else is going to work. And it's same, like, Michael's had some people come over from Europe and try to work, and you know, they're here for like a big adventure, and he's already been here. This is his fourth season in Canada now. It's his third season working for Tony. Um and he had that adventure stuff at the beginning. Not that we're not still having adventures, but like, he's trying to build a life here. He's here to work. It's a very serious thing, and it's not fun all of the time. A lot of people watch the show and think, "Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I'm going to go work for Tony Beets and Gold Rush, and this is going to be action packed and super fun all of the time." And it's not really the case. Like, it's hard work. It's hard work. You have long hours, and yeah, if you get stuck on a rock truck, you're driving in circles for 12 hours. It's really not that entertaining.
Yeah, it's amazing, when they edit stuff and, like they have to change a wheel or something. And then, they edit it and it's like 5-10 minutes of, clips. And you're thinking they're probably there
Yeah.
for 6 hours, doing stuff, because you can see how I remember that episode where Mike, he probably hates to be reminded us of this if he listens, where the wash plant fell off on the side of the
Oh,
road,
yep.
and it was, I think it was in the last season,
Yeah,
yeah.
last year.
And so it's funny because they brought all the machines, and in the show it's like 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes getting it all done.
Yeah.
And you're thinking that's probably the whole day.
Yeah, that was a few hours for sure. Yeah, because he flipped it quite a ways. He was bringing it like
Yeah.
out towards the Indian, which is a couple-hour drive from the hill. And then, yeah, that happened. So then you have to go get loaders, and you got to get Tony. Yeah, that was definitely a lot longer than 20 minutes.
Very tedious things that we don't see. It's like, I imagine there's even be situations where you have to drive 20 kilometers and then you say, oh, I forgot the fucking spanner. I'm sure sometimes you forget small things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes everybody's got to go chasing Tony or something because he forgot the thing, and you're like,
Yeah,
"No, come
yeah,
back
yeah.
here." Yeah, radios help.
Radios, yeah, radios are important, I think, there. And then, for you, when you got there, and like, as you said, you were what age when you kind of started working on the mine? 16, 17?
No, I was 21.
Oh, you're 21, you're older, yeah. So at that stage, had you calmed down a little bit and kind of realized, okay, I'm still like to travel, and I'm still a bit crazy, but I think I want to do this more now. Had that come into your head?
Yeah, no, I say I would have calmed down when I was about 18. I think.
Right.
Yeah, no, I had my rebellious years between like 14 and 18. But no, I purchased my house when I was 18, so I think I was like settling down by that point. Yeah, no, I was purchasing my house. I was already starting to go travel like all winter long. So by that point, I had calmed down for sure. I used to work for a certain hotel here in town, and I was bartending for years. And I thought at that time, I thought that I was gonna become a hotel manager. That's kind of where my thought was going. And I was gonna do that here in the summertime, and then I was gonna travel and maybe like open up something in Mexico and do that during the winter time. And that was kind of my plan. And then the people that I worked for, I was really close with them. They ended up selling the hotel. And I kind of just thought I could keep on doing what I know, or I could try something else. And Monica had always offered me a job. And at the time, like, one of my relationship that I was in was kind of failing. So I was like, I just needed something new. I needed something new. I was here. Monica offered me a job, and I was like, you know what? Let's fucking try it. Let's go see what happens.
Yeah, like it's a chance to branch out, do something different, no?
Yeah, and that's what I love. I love exploring. I love change. I love learning new things. So I was like, yeah, let's take the plunge. It was the best opportunity for me to switch it up. And all of a sudden 7 years went by.
Wow. And I want to get into the show more in a few minutes, but what I want to find out as well, because I can see by your style and everything, your tattoos and everything. Are you like a rock chick? What kind of music do you like?
I do like a little bit of rock. Yeah. I listen to all sorts of stuff. I'm actually super into electronic music.
Oh, electronic music. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're not, is it more like a raver or more techno? Is it what are you into?
I listen to a really different kind of genre of electronic music called ghetto funk. And it's kind of like old.
Okay, I've heard of Get a Funk, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I listen to a lot of Canadian DJs. My best friend, he's from Mexico. He's a DJ. Well, he's from Canada, but he lives in Mexico. He's a DJ. So I listen to a lot of like drum and bass and tropical influenced, and because I live in Mexico for most out of the year. So but I listen to everything. I still listen to old rock and roll and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool because I imagine for people watching the show, because the way these shows are edited, you don't necessarily hear what the operators are listening to while they're working. And, they could put like elevator music and everyone is very calm. And then you could be listening to death
Yeah.
metal and they're kind of good, but they'd never let the audience hear that. So I'm curious sometimes because I'm a musician and this show, we have lots of musicians on it. And I'm always curious because I know Rick Ness was playing like double bass in a swing kind of band, and so I imagine in certain towns, let's say, and in the Yukon itself, you have different styles of music. So I was curious. I was thinking, I wonder, is it like rock? Is it rockabilly? What is it she likes?
Yeah. No, I love really all types of music. Really, it depends on the day. And running a piece of equipment, you go through all of your feelings in 12 hours. So you also listen to all types of music in 12
Exactly, yeah. I saw actually a good saying
hours.
today, and it said, what was it? It said, if emotions are how we show ourselves, music is also how we express it. Because the thing is, it depends on the mood you're in, doesn't it? And 1 minute you might want to listen to trance or techno or whatever, and the next it might be just pop or whatever, no?
Totally. Exactly. Honestly, I listen to a lot of electronic music in the equipment when I'm falling asleep.
Okay, it keeps
I'm
you
like,
awake.
all right, let's get me awake. But yeah, but not all the time. Sometimes, but yeah, a lot of the time I listen to rock and roll and acoustic, and honestly I listen to a lot of
Okay,
and
that's good. Yeah,
audiobooks.
that's good.
Yeah, are mostly what I listen to actually when I run equipment, and it was what most of us listen to because with music, 3 songs go by and you're like, oh, it must have been hours, and turns out no, it was like 10 minutes. But a podcast or an audiobook, you can kind of get lost in the story, and then all of a sudden a few hours have gone by, and it's like fucking a. So I actually,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can listen to some podcasts and they're 3 hours long, and
yeah,
you're like, "Wow, that's really great."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's cool. And I imagine even well, there's people probably learning French and languages in the machine because you have this time and you're sitting down and you're working, and it's hard on your body, but your mind can be stimulated as well while you're working. No?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I really try to find a Frisian podcast or a Frisian language that I can learn so that I can speak Frisian with Michael. But it's not working yet.
That will sound funny because in Ireland, for example, we have the Frisian cow. The
Yeah.
cow. It's called the
Yeah.
Frisian. And so if you said to someone, "I'm looking for a Frisian podcast," they'll say about
About
cows, and you'd say, "No, no, no, it's about the Friesland in the Netherlands," because they'd be mixed up. But I think Frisian cows come from that area. I think that's the link.
yes. Yeah, the Frisian cows and the Frisian horses. That's where they come
Yes,
from.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And cuz he speaks Dutch and he also speaks Frisian, right? So it's its whole own language. So I'm trying to learn it, but it's a very hard language to learn.
Yes, very good. And while we're talking about Michael, actually, now, because Michael is Tony's nephew, so Tony's from Friesland as well, and Minnie is too, I think, isn't she?
Yeah, my first year winter we went there. They actually were there at the same time, and they actually showed me where they grew up, which was kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Hmm
I think there was one show. I could be wrong. You know, sometimes when you have a memory, but then you're not sure, are you imagining it? I think there was a show where they showed Tony going back to where he grew up, or maybe they had pictures of it. Maybe they only had pictures. But
No, it was an
yeah, I think
episode.
that, yeah, there was, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to that exact farm.
Wow, brilliant. So for because obviously Michael's not here, but on behalf of Michael, tell us, when Michael came over, was that something that he kind of made the decision to come himself, or Tony said, "Hey, come on over"?
So it was actually a complete fluke of how he came here. So Michael actually originally came over to milk cows.
Okay.
So he actually, yeah, so he came over to milk cows, and that was actually right when COVID first hit. So he was originally supposed to come to Canada in like April or May, but then kind of COVID craziness happened and it got pushed back. So he didn't actually end up coming to Canada until June. So then he came to Canada, and he was actually first in Barhead in Alberta, and he milked cows for like 9 months. And then I guess like the milking season, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but his time there was over.
You have to clarify what it is. There'll be some perverts out there going, "I know what
Yeah.
that is."
Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna get your podcast today.
Yeah.
Um, but his time was done in Alberta, and so he actually ended up having 3 months left on his visa because he had come later than he was supposed to. And so he was like, "Well, I might as well go and see if I can go gold mining for my uncle because he just happened to have these 3 months left." And then so yeah, he came up originally just for those 3 months, and then he fell in love with gold mining, and he fell in love with me. So now
Oh,
he has to
and
stay.
that's a lot of pressure, because if you said to someone in the Yukon, I'm going gold mining with my uncle," and they're like, "Oh, that sounds nice. Who's your uncle?" "Tony Beets." "Oh God, are you sure? Are you sure that?"
Oh
Yeah,
God.
because Tony's a hard man, and I imagine with even family, maybe there's more pressure on them.
Yeah, I mean, Michael is so I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So when Michael first showed up, the first way that I met Michael, I was on Rock Truck in the cut, and I watched somebody come over a hill with a D10 dozer in third gear. You never run a dozer in third gear. Never. And I just saw
Okay,
this
okay,
dozer
yeah.
barreling over this hill in third gear, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know who that is, but that guy's gonna be fired." And of course he didn't get fired. I don't even think Tony saw it, but I was like, "What are you doing, man?" And he's like, "Well, I work for Tony Beets. Everything has to be fast." I was like, "Okay, I get it."
And actually, there was one show recently where I saw it was on Parker's crew on a few episodes ago of the last season, and uh, Mitch was, his mechanic, Mitch Blaska, was looking, and they saw somebody coming in the rock truck, and they said, "Who the hell is driving the rock truck at that speed?" And then they realized it was Parker, and they said, "Oh, it's okay, you won it."
That's funny. That's too
you know
funny. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because I think that's it. Yeah, as you said earlier, when you're an operator, you have to learn to control them at the speed that doesn't break them.
Yeah. Well, they're old. Those D10s are old, and yeah, you just don't. But I get where his train of thought was, because yeah, Tony wants everything done 3 weeks ago. Um, so yeah, he's
Yes, of course. And for you and Michael, then, I mean, is that very hard to maintain a romance, a relationship, working together, one, but in that environment, do you find a lot of pressure from having to work together all the time, or you've found a way to work around it?
No, we've done great. I don't know. Me and Michael really, so yeah, he started in April. We didn't get together until June. And then yeah, we've been working beside, living beside, traveling beside each other every day since day one. So I don't think we know any different. We don't actually get to work together all that much. Me and Michael are usually off doing different things. Sometimes we see each other a lot, so it's like a little wave and a little kissy face, and you keep going. But
You have to make sure it's the right guy in the truck you're blowing kisses at. You'd be like, I hope that was Michael. And then it said, this is Tony. Why are you blowing kisses at me?
yeah, no, the funniest thing is probably having Tony around because Tony is always like, just he's like, when's the baby coming? When are you getting married? So he's always,
He's putting his own
always
pressure on
talking
it.
like that. Yeah, he's putting his own pressure on it. And film crew love it, of course. That's a whole thing for the show.
Of course. The thing I think is in all the seasons of Gold Rush, you've seen maybe sometimes possibly there could be like, is there a relationship off camera? And I know, and not so much on Tony's crew, you never really saw it, but I remember on Parker's crew when there was some girls there and people were thinking, is there something there? But I think Parker's like Tony.
Yeah.
He's a hard man to work with and everything. So, but I imagine for you guys, it was a case of, do we hide it, or like it's impossible to hide it? Was that something you talked about?
No, not at all. We didn't hide it at all. No. I'm a I'm a pretty blunt human being. I'm I'm not I'm not subtle at all. So no,
Yeah, you can't hide it.
no, I think actually even before we got together, Tony saw me, I don't know, probably giving eyes to Michael and he was like, "Oh God, Ruby, leave that
Yeah,
poor guy alone." I was like, "No." uh,
he's just kind of seen history repeating itself, probably in different situations.
yeah, yeah. No, he's been supportive. No, me and Michael just yeah, we fell into each other, and then honestly, it's so nice being able to go home to each other because it is a hard,
That's lovely. Yeah,
it's a long day and it's a long few months, and a lot of these guys don't see their kids or their wives for 7 months out of the year, and it's nice being able to come home and get a hug from the person I love, and we can mutually bitch about things that happened that day, and it's nice to have the support. I have seen many couples that start in the mining industry and don't work out, um because you maybe carry much too much from work that day home, or life outside of the mine is very different than real life. You're kind of in your own little world out there, and when people kind of hook up in the mine, sometimes this person looks so shiny and so great, and then you get out in the real world, and turns out no, they were just a cuddle. they were just
yeah, of course. And I think what it is, it's kind of like someone can seem more attractive when there's less of them around too, because
yeah,
you have that situation where you'd like, I'd never look at that guy, and then you're with him for 6 months, and you're like, he looks a bit better now.
yeah, yeah, no, and even me and Michael, like when we got together in June, and then you know, we got to probably our season runs till about October, and I think it was like in August that we were like, so like he was planning to go back to the Netherlands, I was planning to go to Mexico, and we could kind of joked and like made some comments about. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to Europe or something, and I think it was like yeah, August or September when I think I had said that exactly. I was like, oh, somebody had asked me, and they're like, "Well, Ruby, where are you going this winter?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe Europe or something." And then he was like, "Should we do this? Like, are we gonna do this?"
Ooh.
And I was like, "Yeah, I'll go to Europe, but I'll only go to Europe as your girlfriend." So
Yeah, I mean that's it. That's the way to go. You're like, well, I can go, but I don't just need a ticket to Europe. I need a ticket to love.
Yeah. There we go. I was
Yeah.
not that smooth.
I'm thinking how you convinced him, but good job anyway.
Yeah.
When we get into the show and how the show is made and so on. And it's funny because I remember when Todd was on the podcast, and I said to him, I said, Todd, look, when we watch the show, sometimes you'll see the producers saying, oh, they're not there, and he said, yeah, they're in these shows. There are moments when something happens and the production crew aren't there, and they say to you, "Can you do it again?" And they're like, can we do it again? And they say, he just fell under the rock truck. Yeah, but can you do it again?
Can you do it again? Yeah. Uh, I've had those moments.
Yeah, I'm sure there are moments when the camera crews get in the way, but also they're trying to kind of recreate scenes that maybe they missed, or little moments, are also doing these pickup shots
Yeah.
and things. So that's kind of hard to get. We see it as a flawless finished thing. But for you guys, I'm sure it must be a bit frustrating, no?
Yeah, it can be. I try to be as respectful as I can with film crew because they're also just trying to do their job. Like they're just trying to do their job. And really, at the end of the day, it's not even their decision. They're getting told what to do from London. So and I think a lot of the time, these people have never been in a gold mine before. They don't really know how it works. So sometimes they ask like silly questions, or we had like a huge pipe explode on us one day, and they fucking came up to me and they're like, "Can you make that happen again?" And I was like, "No, I cannot make this giant ass pipe explode again."
Tony's going to kill me for the first time. I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think somebody like the plant had gone down and they shut off the valves in the wrong way, so that whole thing exploded, right? And they're like, "Oh yeah, can you make that happen again?" And we're like, "No, of course, no, we cannot make that happen again." 7. Um,
I suppose over time, as they're learning how to film the mine, they probably start putting cameras everywhere so that they're just getting shots of everything.
they try to.
Yeah, even when it's like if there's nothing happening for hours and all of a sudden the pipe bursts, hopefully they have a camera somewhere in the zone, don't they?
Yeah, and that's how usually they can get in the way. They just get really excited because something is going down, and I get it. Like they're trying to film something. My job for Tony comes first. My obligation, I am a paid character for Discovery now, but my job for Tony comes first. So like if something's going down and I'm running full tilt to try to shut something down or something's going on and they're trying to chase me and say, Ruby, put on a mic, Ruby, put on a mic. I'm like, fucking leave me alone. Like, I have something to do. Once I've put out the flames, then I'll put on the mic and we can do whatever show you want. But like my obligation and my main job comes first.
You see sometimes when Mike, when he gets under pressure, he'll tell them. You see that quite a lot where he'll just go, leave me the hell alone, or get out of my face. When you're operating heavy machinery, you have to be on your A game, and dangerous occupation. So you can't have anybody distracting you in stressful moments, can you?
Yeah, there's a fine balance. There's definitely a fine balance. You have to make sure, not everybody gets along with film crew as much as I do, I guess. But there's just that balance. Like, yeah, these people are just trying to do their job, but at the same time, they have to respect that we're also trying to do our jobs. And sometimes, like, if we've asked you, hey, like, you know what, right now you need to back off or you need to leave me alone at the moment, and they kind of keep pestering, then of course then it can be really frustrating because you're trying to get something done. It's of course they're always showing up when something's going wrong because that's of course what makes TV. So of course you're already stressed out, but yeah, it's a fine balance. I think it's something that us as operators need to find a balance with, and I think it's something that film crew also needs to find balance with. Like when we've told you 4 times, no, come back in 20 minutes. You need to respect that.
With those machines, because some of them have a really long arm, or sometimes I don't think you use this word there in the Yukon, but for example, in Europe, sometimes they call it the jib, the arm. Do you use that word? The jib. You use that too, no?
No, we use the stick and the boom.
Yeah, the stick and the boom. Yeah, sometimes I grew up next to a guy who was an excavator driver, and he would be saying like the jib and the boom. He'd all these different names, but I
Mm,
think probably with
yeah,
those machines, especially for the film crew, is more the tail end of the excavator when it's turning, because it's in your blind spot, and
counterweight.
yeah, and that's like whatever's in front of you. But if you're turning and they happen to be there, that's quite dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all right for that. They also have a safety person that's with them all the time. So they come in little clusters. There's like a sound person and a video person, usually a PR, I think they call them, and then there's a safety person. They always have a safety person for them, and the safety person's job is literally, because it's usually the cameraman that always gets in the way, because of course he's like focused on his shot. So he's like, walking backwards and there's a pipe or something, or, so that literally that safety person pretty much just like grabs the cameraman by the collar and just like makes sure he doesn't die. um,
Right.
the worst thing they do is probably the parking. Their parking is just horrendous.
They park in the wrong places.
Always. Every single time.
Okay, okay. And then when you talk about the machines themselves, so we see you a lot on the excavator, but you've done the rock trucks and you've done them all. Have you a favorite machine? What's your favorite?
A dozer is my favorite.
You like the dozer?
I like the dozer. Yeah, I really like the dozer. I would love some more. I would love to learn how to rip, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how if that happens. But no, dozer's my favorite. I like dozer the most because you're usually building something. You're usually like
Yeah.
doing something with it. Whereas like the excavator and the loader and the rock truck, you're usually just kind of doing the same thing over. It gets very monotonous. Um, so I really like dozer because yeah, you're usually like building a pad or building a road or doing something with it, and I enjoy that.
I imagine that building the pad, is quite fun as well. But also when you see, let's say, if Mike's ripping or any of the other crews are ripping, it's quite hard on the ripper blade, and you have to have a big machine. So that ground is really, really rock hard, isn't it? So you can see the damage it does to the
It's frozen.
machinery. It's frozen, yeah. There's no Elsa around, but the
Yeah, it's
ground's frozen,
permafrost. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
you're funny.
But for you, do you say to Tony, "Oh, can I get a few hours on the dozer?" Or are you trying to kind of get into machines that you don't normally drive?
Yeah. I don't know how much I can divulge of this season. Um,
Oh, okay, okay. You can't let it slip yet. Sorry.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
don't let it
Um,
slip. Don't spoil it.
okay, I won't spoil it for anybody. Yeah. I really would like to learn to rip. But Tony doesn't want me to rip because it's very hard on your body, and I have a really bad back. I've hurt myself a few times. I've got some uh really bad problems with my spine. Um, but it's really hard on you because you're constantly sitting like backwards, right? You're having to twist and watch
Oh
that
yeah,
ripper
yeah.
blade.
Because you're looking back all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I asked him last year or the year before. I was really pushing, trying to be like, "Let me run the dozer, let me run the dozer." And he's like, I think he's getting sick of it because he's like, "Ruby, like you're just gonna fall apart. Like your back cannot handle that. Like you're gonna be in pain." And I'm just like, "Let me try. Like I want to do this." And he's like, "I'm gonna put you in the hardest fucking ground that I can find for a shift, and you're gonna be so fucking broken that you're never gonna ask me the fucking question again." And I'm like, "That's mean. Just let
You'll
me."
be walking around like this all the whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be stuck backwards. Yeah.
That's actually a question. It's maybe a technical thing, but why, when you're ripping like that in the dozer, why can the seat not swivel around? Like, why can't you turn the chair?
Yeah, so actually in a dozer, it doesn't sit straight. It actually does sit like kind of
Sideways. Okay.
sideways, kind of, a little bit. Um, but it doesn't. I think just because there's not enough room in the cab, like even in that big D11 to swivel. But yeah, they actually do sit like sideways. They don't sit straight
So
on.
they have a kind of vision both ways.
Yeah, a little bit, but you're always still twisted like this. Like you're always watching that blade, and you still have to keep on the controls, right? So yeah, I don't know why. Engineers. I blame engineers. Yeah.
Engineers, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And I suppose the viewers never see the kind of turmoil on your body from these machines, because even with the rock trucks, it doesn't matter how well they build the roads. I remember Tony, I don't know, I think he still has it, the grader for the
Yeah.
roads. So, and you imagine that put down a very nice layer of roads, and it was maybe easier to drive on. But as you said there, in the rock trucks, or when they're going back and over all day, this must be really difficult on their back, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you can grade the road as much as you want, but you're not going to go grade in the cut, right? So it's when you go into the cut and you're bouncing around. It is like equipment operating, and people think that, like, or at least a person like me, like, we don't just sit in the equipment all day. You still have to do gold cleanups, which take a lot of work on your back. You still have to. It can still. We don't run equipment all the time. Sometimes you're in the yard and you're flinging pails, and it is hard on your body. You sit for a long time. I don't ever think sitting for 12 hours a day is very good on your body. You're getting jostled around, you're getting bumped around. Yeah, it can be really tough on your body. Loader used to be my favorite, but now if I sit in a loader for 12 hours, if I have to do that for a month straight, I'm in pretty rough condition because you bounce. You just bounce for 12 hours.
And when Monica had her baby, obviously she had to step away from the machines, because you don't want the baby coming out like a basketball after he's born, because that's the only movement he knows.
Yeah, that's right. She definitely fell asleep really easily when you rocked her. She
Yeah.
was used to that. Yeah, no, Monica worked up right until she was about to give birth. Like, she didn't stop working. She worked all the way up until she gave birth to Jasmine in May, at the end of May. Her birthday's the 29th, I believe. I should know
Yeah.
this. Um, but she worked, like, you actually in the Yukon, because they can't deliver babies here. She had to go down to Whitehorse. So she had to leave. I think 3 weeks you have to be down there for. But she worked right up until then. She worked right up until the beginning of May. She was loading rock trucks.
Tony will have to get a baby delivery machine just to keep the workers on site.
Yeah, I said that to him the other day because he's like, oh, like, when are you gonna start producing, like, all this practice? Where's the product? And I was like, well, Tony, I can't get pregnant. I gotta work. And he's like, nah, well, you'll be fine. There's still stuff you
Here's a
can
few
do.
days off.
Yeah.
I saw it in one of the shows, I think, or the narrator was talking about it, but it's a kind of a startling fact, is that they say that for every small bucket of gold, you need to dig up a whole football field. So that's quite something, isn't it? Like, when you can see the amount of earth you need to shift, and the amount of yardage and so on, and you're still trying to get that half bucket of gold or whatever, or even a pail of gold.
Hmm.
So it's kind of astronomical, the amount of dirt you have to move, isn't it?
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy, especially, like, up on the hill. How much overburden we move is just insane. Like, we had to go, what, 180 feet down for overburden to get to pay. Like, that's we moved a mountain. We literally,
Yeah, you do, literally.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then you think about, like, all the overhead costs that they spend. Like, a D11 dozer, I think, burns through like $2,400 worth of fuel every 12 hours. Like, that's, and then you're paying the operator sitting on top of that. You're paying all the parts, the wear and tear, like,
Yeah, the wear
and
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 tear.
that's
And
Yeah, that's just one machine. That's one machine out of all of like the fleet of rock trucks that he has, and the excavators and the welders and the carpenters and the mechanics and the cooks and the
Everybody.
office people. Like it's really crazy. You got to be a special type of crazy to be a gold miner, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a special fascination.
Yeah.
Also, when you were saying about the mountain, how does that happen then when you have to dig, for example, 180 feet? Do you have like safety engineers that come in and say, okay, look, you've taken away half that mountain, the rest could fall? Or I mean, because sometimes you see the trucks up on the edge of these ravines and so on. So is there ever a time when you're up, when you're on it beforehand, it's not as scary, but then you say, oh God, there's 100-foot drop there, 180-foot drop. So are there moments when you're kind of, as they say, you're kind of stuck to your seat with fear,
No, no, because the way that we do it, you don't. It's not like you're taking 180 feet off all at once. Like, so it's all by layers. It's all by layers. And then
Yes, right.
so your face is done. So every time you go a layer down, you have to make a bench. So that if there's any part of that wall that starts to tumble, it just falls onto that bench. And there's safety precautions put into there. And then it's same with where the rock trucks are dumping. Like, of course, they make it all dramatic on TV, but there's berms in place. Like, there's berms in place. People are properly trained. There's there's definitely safety measures put in place so that nobody gets hurt. We are in an industry where accidents happen. I've seen, rock trucks flip, sometimes walls fall down. But, and the people that are trained, like, the excavator operators and stuff that are out there are also trained to watch for this kind of stuff. So we're all trained about or we all know and have the knowledge of watching the bank and knowing that, if you start seeing dirt trickle in a certain way, that bench is about to fall, and you move everybody even
Okay,
further away
yeah.
from it. Of course, stuff can happen. I have seen walls come down, but we take every precaution that we can, and Tony's been gold mining for 40 plus years, so there's definitely things in the way that we remove dirt, and the way that we stack dirt, and the way that we do things to make it safe. These are people's lives. These are multi-million-dollar machines. That's I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's production. If something happens, that whole production gets halted. Like you have to put those things in place.
You can't really take chances. And as you said, with that amount of experience Tony has, he knows what situations could happen. So he's thinking ahead of the game all the time. Yeah, yeah, of sure.
Yeah, 100%. And everybody is. Like, you have to have people. Everybody needs to have their eyes open. Everybody needs to be paying attention. That's just, yeah. If you're not paying attention or being reckless, like you just don't last. You'll just be out of there. Like, if you're a rock truck driver, I know the biggest thing about the rock truck drivers, like being an excavator operator, one thing that is drilled into their heads is that the second that you feel that dirt hit your box, you stop.
Okay.
You stop, because if and you put on your parking brake, because if I'm sitting at the same level as a rock truck driver and he doesn't stop when I want him to stop, and he rolls back, he's gonna crush me. He's gonna crush me to death. So, if people aren't paying attention and you fuck around, you're just gone. You just don't stay.
You've kind of seen through seasons, people who roll rock trucks and people who kind of are too dangerous. Like somebody could say, oh, maybe that's harsh. They could learn, but you're also holding other people's lives in your hand, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, mistakes happen. Like people flip rock truck boxes. And it's not like they're fired on the spot.
No.
You definitely get a talking to, and it usually fucking shakes people awake pretty fast. Um, and shit happens. People are human. People make mistakes. Things occur, but it's just being aware and being accountable for your mistake, and if you can own up to it and apologize, and just take away from that experience and learn better, then you'll be okay. But it's just it's always ignorance. It's always ignorance that gets you in trouble. So
What's the situation then with, because of the popularity of the show, do you get people every season coming looking to work there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. Even me myself, like I have so many messages every single day about people asking me to get them work, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong department. Like I'm
You can
not
clean my
HR. I
house.
can't help you. Yeah. No, no. I'm in the wrong department. Sorry. Like you gotta go through the certain channels. Now
You're like, I do need a broom operator if you're free.
yeah, you wanna come clean my yard? You can do that. We have a lot of people that think that we're in the States, and we're not. We're in Canada. The Yukon is in Canada. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can come work here," and they're like, "Do you have a work visa?" And they're like, "No, you're I'm American." And we're like, "That's cool. We're in
We're not
Canada."
in America.
No, that's
See
nice.
you in the mine on Monday.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. A lot of fans think that I'm American, and I'm not. I'm Canadian.
Yeah, because let's say, as you said, there's all these names, and there's Haines, Alaska, there's the Yukon to Austin City, so people get mixed up in the names and the places. I can imagine, yeah, there are people that make
Hmm.
the pilgrimage to come up and see can they
Yeah.
get a job, but then they realize that it's not just about being on television. Because explain that process to us actually, because if you go there working, and if you say flat out, you were saying about Lisa maybe said, I don't want to be on television as much. But for people who go there, how do the film crews kind of screen them? They say, oh, they're wannabes. They want to be on TV. How do they deal with all of that?
You can decide if you want it to be shown or not. A lot of people don't get shown. A lot of people don't get shown. I mean, people, if you want to be shown, then you have to sign like just an
Yeah.
agreement. But no, they don't hand out contracts like anything. It's hard to get a contract. I was lucky, Tony helped me get me my contract. But no, it's not an easy thing. It's all about, I don't know how they make the decision, honestly. I think in the beginning of Gold Rush, maybe it was a little bit easier because it was like the beginning of the show. We're in like what, season 13, 14 now?
13, 14. I'm lost. I just know when the seasons come up, but it's pretty far ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how it was at the beginning. I believe that it was probably a lot easier for people to get contracts at the beginning of Gold Rush when they were developing the show and developing characters. But no, nowadays it's not. They don't just hand out contracts. I think you got to be there for quite a few years. I think you have to like really be a character. And I think you really have to fight for it if you really want a contract. They don't make it easy.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you was as well about the whole gold fever thing, because I think for people who don't, have never experienced that, they watch these shows sometimes and they kind of go, yeah, but come on, like, look at some of these people are mining and they get nothing and whatever. But I think, from having watched these shows for years now, the gold fever really does
Hmm.
get some people, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The people that come up here, that like actually come up here, and I don't know for the show, but it's been like that for years. Like the call of the wild, the call of the north. It's a different kind of living. It's a different kind of world up here. Even people that, are attracted to the north and attracted to the Yukon, and Alaska for its beauty and its nature, and it's kind of removed from the rest of society. That attraction has always been there. And yeah, of course, gold mining, it's so like wild west. It's such a different lifestyle, and I think a lot of people crave that, right? Like that adventure. Like what a life, what an adventure that is, to be up in the middle of nowhere and chasing shiny rocks and having bears come through your camp. And it sounds unreal. It sounds like a novel. And there has been novels written about it, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, from the early days of the Yukon, and all the miners that went there. I mean, there's such amazing stories. And
Yeah.
even when you watch other shows and they say
Yeah.
about gold lost in the hills, and even there's just like such a gold fever all the way up from North America. And you can see how, I can imagine for you when you were younger, even the first time you held gold, a nugget or things in your hand, It probably does, like, oh, okay, I got you now, Ruby.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because I grew up around it and because I grew up in this town, it wasn't as fascinating as a lot of people think. But as I got older, honestly, I understand and as I travel the world, I understand more and more this attraction of the Yukon. My mom was not from here. My dad is from here, and growing up here, I was like, "Why the fuck did my parents decide to come and live in the middle of fucking nowhere? I mean, why here?" Like, the winters are really hard, they're really cold. I haven't spent a winter here in 10 years. It'll be Michael and I are spending the winter here this year. It'll be my first year in 10 years, and I'm still like, "What are we doing?" Um, but I think of course the gold adds to it, but I really think that gold fever is the whole thing. It's the whole atmosphere. I think it's the call of the wild. I think it's living up here. I think, yeah, you want to go play. It's every kid's little dream. Let's go play in the sandbox and find cool shit. Like everybody wants to do that. So I think,
Of course.
yeah, I think watching Michael, I think he's got some gold fever. He really likes the industry. There's a lot of freedom out here, especially compared to places like Europe and the city. Like, I think it's a whole package. I don't think it like gold, of course, is the shiny little cherry on top, but I think it's really the whole package.
He went looking for nuggets and he found rubies. So,
That's right.
yeah.
I've heard
So,
that line so many times.
yeah, I'm sure you've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well, with the dark side of gold mining, I mean, when you look back through history, men, women, people have been killed over gold. So in modern gold mining, when you see kind of fights over claims, and I'm sure, like you said you worked as a bartender, so I'm sure you've seen arguments breaking out in the bars over land disputes and claims and just gold mining in general. No.
Not so much. Not so much. No, like probably 30 years ago it was a lot more like that. You still definitely do hear about debates and those were on my claim and you are mining past your claim post, and of course those debates come in because it's expensive. Gold mining is an expensive industry. Like you spend so much money to get this shiny stuff, and it's not guaranteed that it's going to be under there. Like you don't know if you're really going to walk away
No.
with more overhead than what you put in. A lot of people do go broke out here, so I think like it could be like high intensity when you do think somebody's taking your excavator or taking your claim post. Like you don't know if somebody got a little bit greedy on their land and pushed over to your land, how much gold was sitting under there that they just met.
Tie the ribbon on the next tree, maybe.
Yeah, like I could imagine that it gets hostile. Yeah, absolutely. You don't know if they hit like the mother lode in that little corner that they took that was your
Of
corner.
course.
Like it probably could get very hostile, I could imagine. And you hear of like old stories of people chasing each other with axes and stuff like that. But luckily I haven't seen that.
It doesn't happen so much. But one thing I kind of noticed over the last few years is that one guy who always seems to kind of make the money is the guy who does the drilling and the testing, because that's a very expensive part of it. But they're guaranteed money because they have to be paid whether they hit gold or not. So you kind of think to yourself, that's not as risky as gold mining, but expensive.
Yeah, but back in the day, you know who the one that made all the profit here in the gold rush was? It wasn't the miners, it was the guy selling the shovel.
Exactly. Yeah. It was the supply store and everything. Exactly. Wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That gold is fantastic, but if you can't get to it, then shitty to be you.
It's like when they tally up at the end of the season how much gold they've made, and then of course Tony's talking to Minnie about going to auction to buy $2 million dozers and stuff. You kind of see that money disappearing very fast. But the one thing that I always think is the
Oh yeah.
funniest is Tony's trucks. The pickups, the SUVs. I mean, how many of those has he gone through?
Yeah, the Denali's. There's a whole boneyard filled with Denali.
You could go in there and just pick them apart and make a new one, no?
Oh yeah, well that's why he keeps them. I think the most I've seen him go through in one season was four in one season. Yeah, no, he goes through those Denali's like nobody's business. Yeah,
He drives them hard.
absolutely. This is the place where Denali's come to die. Yeah.
Of course, of course. So, Ruby, tell me this then. With the last 7 seasons you've been there and everything, what's kind of been your most memorable moment? And I know it's probably meeting Michael, but besides that, like, have you any moment or season that really stood out for you?
Honestly, not in specific moments. No, I enjoy my growth. Like I've gotten to learn a lot. Like I honestly I can contribute. Well, I could contribute my whole career to the Beats family. I love that I have felt in my time that, all the equipment that I've gotten to learn. I love that. So I'm one of the only people outside of the Beats family that has gotten to do their gold cleaning, which is really special to me. I think like it's nice to be trusted with that responsibility. I honestly do. I love when new people come to the site and they're asking me questions and I'm like, oh right, like I do know this. I've served my time here. I do know what I'm talking about. So I just like my personal growth. Honestly, I love my personal growth. I love that. Of course, I love that I've met the love of my life here. I love that I've, rekindled my friendship, my childhood friendship with Monica. That's, I'll always hold that to my heart. In this time, I've gotten to watch her get married. We got to watch her have her child. Like, that's really special to me. I've gotten to see all of that and being part of all of that. So just growth in my career and my personal life has been, the best.
That's really good. And I think I'm right in saying this is your first podcast, no?
It is my first podcast.
Wow. So and I'm surprised really because you've been a big character for the last while. So
Oh,
I'm surprised you haven't been on other ones, but it's definitely been our pleasure to have you on. And I we will definitely have you on again in the future sometime.
yeah, maybe I can rope Michael in.
Yeah, we can. That's what I was going to say. We can have the power couple. It'll be
Yeah.
we'll be like, who's more powerful, Tony and Minnie or Ruby and Michael?
Oh, shit, you're gonna get me fired.
Tony'd be like, I want that bit edited out. No, he can laugh at it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. And I think from watching the shows and being a fan of the shows, I mean, there's always a great feeling and everyone seems like good people, and there's all different personalities on Gold Rush, whether it be, Dustin or Fred on one show, Todd Hoffman and another, Parker. There's so many great personalities and hard people but they're good people behind it all. And I think with Tony Beets' crew and with yourself and everything, you have a good operation there. It's a great operation, and it's a pleasure to watch it, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I loved all your questions, and it was a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you for being my first podcast. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and more people will hear about Ruby and the show, because sometimes I say to people, you don't know Gold Rush, and they're like, no, and I'm like, oh wow, you have to watch that show.
Oh,
So I think in some countries it's very big, in other country it depends on the network and how they put it out and so on. But it's a great show, and I mean it has so many fans, and there's going to be so many fans that will watch this and find out things about Ruby that maybe they didn't know. You understand?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. It's great.
So, Ruby, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And before we let you go, actually, I know you can't reveal too much about the show. Just let us know, you're going to film till when, October, or how you're in the middle of the season now?
We're in the middle of the season now. Yeah, no, that's not giving anything away. Our seasons are standard. It's all weather dependent, right? Mother Nature is going to be the one that kicks us out. So yeah, we started March. We started March 10th this year, and we'll go till probably the beginning of October.
Okay, brilliant. And then you get to go to
Yeah.
Friesland or maybe the Netherlands. Or are you going to stay maybe this winter? You
Not
said
this
no.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're staying this winter. Yeah, I think we're gonna go to Mexico for a month in February, but we're staying winter.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
wish you all the best,
yeah,
and I hope you have a lovely warm winter there in the Yukon.
yeah.
We will, put this out and let people enjoy it. So thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Ruby Mahoney, everybody. Thank you very much, Ruby, for appearing on our podcast. It was a pleasure to have you. And it was great to hear another insight from the show. And as I said, I'm a big fan. I watch it constantly. And it's great to have a guest like yourself on the show to tell us all about it. Great to hear your insights, and being a woman as an excavator driver and the amazing work you do and Monica Beets does on the show. We can't forget Minnie Beets because she's an amazing woman too. And where would Tony be without her, So it was great to hear your insights all about your cast members and the people you work with on a daily basis. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you very much. And it was lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. And for you, the listener, we hope you enjoyed the show. We hope Ruby was able to give you some valuable insights if you were a fan of the show. And we hope you continue listening to the magnificent guests we will have coming on in the next few weeks. And until then, all I want to say is my name is Simon K. This is the Collective Whisper Podcast. And until the next time, take care of yourself, your friends, your family, and the people you love. Bye-bye.